I was summoned into my boss's office, a room that usually carried a calm aura of authority, but today the air was thick, and the tension nearly suffocating. Adrian Miller, my employer and mentor, sat behind his grand oak desk. His normally composed presence seemed fractured. His hands were clenched too tightly, and his sharp gaze revealed an unfamiliar fragility. He gestured for me to sit, releasing a heavy sigh that hinted at the weight of his words. "I think of you as a brother," he began, his Swiss accent heavier than usual, each syllable measured. "What I'm about to say will wound you. Promise me you won't act without thought." The seriousness in his tone made my chest tighten. I nodded, uncertain of what was coming. Adrian leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Your wife, Julia, she's been seeing my son Eric." The revelation struck like a blow, my world splintering. In an instant, I froze, struggling to comprehend what I had just heard. He continued, guilt saturating his words. "They're on their honeymoon now, celebrating their betrayal." My throat locked, my mind spinning. Adrian saw the storm building within me. "Luca," he said firmly, "I know your past. Know your temper. I beg you, don't do anything irreversible. But if you want justice, I have a plan. It's careful, foolproof. All I ask is one thing. Swear my son remains unharmed." I nodded faintly, rage boiling under my chin. Adrian's calm, strategic air stood in sharp contrast to the inferno inside me. I left his office in a fog, his words echoing as Julia's betrayal suffocated me. Julia, the woman I had trusted, the woman who vowed loyalty. She had told me she needed space, that she was on a work trip to southern France. Now the truth was clear. No work trip, only Eric. Back in my empty apartment I sat, surrounded by reminders of a life that suddenly felt like a cruel illusion. Photos, souvenirs, every memory mocked me. My first instinct was to confront them, to demand answers. But Adrian's warning clung to me. "Don't be reckless." He promised a plan. And the next day I returned to his office, my fury barely contained. "You said you had a plan," I muttered. Adrian nodded gravely. "This isn't about blood, Luca. This is about precision." Eric, as Adrian described, was the family's spoiled outcast, an entitled man-child who had never lifted finger. Adrian wanted his son humbled, and I wanted justice. Together we devised a scheme both flawless and merciless. Adrian wielded his fortune and influence like a blade, severing Eric from every resource. Overnight, credit cards failed. His access to family wealth vanished. The extravagant honeymoon collapsed as bills went unpaid, staff exchanged awkward glances, and humiliation set in. Julia, who had dreamed of a life of luxury, was stripped of her illusions. But that was only the opening move. Adrian had a hidden trove of photos. Eric, at wild parties, entangled with other women, old but potent. An anonymous email delivered them to Julia. Planted its seed. When the couple returned to London, fractures widened. Eric, broke and desperate, quickly discovered how unforgiving the world could be. Adrian blocked every opportunity, ensuring doors slammed in his face. Julia, disillusioned, began to see Eric for what he was, a hollow man without his father's fortune. Quietly I pressed further. Julia's favorite boutique closed her account. Her social circle began slipping away. Each small disruption chipped at her facade, eroding the dream she clung to. Months passed. Their lies rotted from within. The bond they built on deception buckled under its own weight. The climax of our plan unfolded at Adrian's opulent gala in the Waldorf his Torai a dazzling gathering of the elite. Eric viewed the night as his last chance to salvage pride, to win favor from his father's circle. Julia, eager to maintain appearances, arrived draped in a gown she could barely afford, determined to fake perfection. It was there too, blending into the crowd, not for petty gloating but to witness the collapse of their empire of lies. Whispers soon filled the ballroom. Eric's fall from grace had become irresistible. Gossip. A prominent journalist cornered him, pressing about his finances. The pressure broke him. Eric snapped. Julia tried desperately to save the moment, but her flailing only magnified his humiliation. By night's end their charade lay in ruins. Julia stormed out, her gown failing to hide her disgrace. Eric, stripped of arrogance, remained alone, crushed beneath his own choices. Watching from the shadows, I felt no urge for further vengeance. The truest revenge wasn't destruction, it was forcing them to endure the chaos they created, letting their betrayal consume them from the inside. I don't need your help, Eric shouted, his voice echoing from the staircase. The words cut the air, silencing the room. All eyes turned, whispers replaced by gasps as the spectacle unfolded. You're part of the problem, he shouted, his fury aimed at Julia, who stood frozen, her cheeks burning with humiliation. You think you're some prize, living off me like parasite. You're nothing. The room held its breath, stunned into silence. Julia's lips trembled as she fought to stay composed. But Eric wasn't finished. You're the reason I'm in this mess, he continued, his voice rising, sharp and venomous, cutting through the air like a storm. Adrian, always the composed host, stepped forward, resting a firm hand on his son's shoulder. His calm, commanding presence seemed to curb Eric's rage, at least momentarily. Enough, Adrian said, his tone steady but firm. Without waiting for Eric's response, he guided him to a quieter corner, away from the judgmental stares of the guests. Curious, I followed at a distance, hiding in the shadows to observe the fallout. You've humiliated yourself enough tonight, Adrian began, his voice cutting but calm. It's time to face reality, Eric. You've spent your life running, blaming others for your failures, shifting responsibility like a child. That ends here. Eric's face burned with anger, jaw tight, as he struggled to maintain his crumbling bravado. You don't understand, he snapped. I was trying to make it on my own. Adrian's reply was swift, precise, and piercing. You exploit everyone, Eric. You used Julia. You used Luca. Now you're paying the price for your selfishness. The words hit like a hammer, leaving Eric speechless. His defiance wavered, and for a moment he seemed diminished, stripped of his arrogance. Without another word, he stormed out, leaving an uneasy silence behind. Julia hesitated, her mask cracking with every second before following the guests' glances, slicing like daggers. In the weeks that followed, the consequences of their actions became undeniable. Eric, cut off from his father's wealth and barred from opportunities by Adrian's influence, moved into a shabby, run-down apartment, far removed from the life of luxury he had known. For the first time he faced the emptiness of his own choices. Julia also faced her reckoning. Without Eric's support, she could no longer uphold her lavish lifestyle. Her social image, once pristine, was tarnished by the scandal of their affair. Her attempts to regain her former status were met with indifference. She took her first job in years, confronting harsh reality day after day. One afternoon, as I sipped coffee in a quiet cafe, my phone buzzed unexpectedly. It was Julia, her voice trembling, uncertain. Luca, she said, almost pleading. Can we? I need to explain. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met later that week. The same cafe. She appeared changed. Humble, subdued, a shadow of the woman I once knew. Her polished exterior replaced by raw vulnerability, catching me off guard. I made a mistake, she admitted, voice shaking as she looked at her hands. I thought Eric could give me the life I deserved. I was wrong. So wrong. Tears glistened in her eyes as she poured out regrets, apologizing for the pain she had caused. I listened silently, emotions strangely steady. The rage I once felt had burned itself out, leaving detachment. When she finished, I spoke calmly. Julia, I said, quiet but firm. I don't hate you. I don't have the energy. But it's time for you to move on. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it. Nodded slowly, wiping her tears, and for the first time understanding flickered in her eyes. Pain and consequence had changed her as it had changed me. The months that followed brought closure in ways I hadn't anticipated. I thrived at work, dedicating myself to the career I loved. I found joy in small moments, quiet evenings, laughter with friends, the pride of rebuilding a life on my terms. Even met Sophia, a kind, intelligent woman who valued trust and loyalty above all else. Adrian and I stayed close, our bond strengthened by shared trials. Even Eric found a measure of redemption working at a small startup and learning accountability. Julia, in her own way, rebuilt her life, embracing humility and purpose as a consultant. One evening, standing on my new terrace, I watched the sun set over the city. Golden light bathed everything, and for the first time in years I felt profound peace. Life had tested me, broken me, but also made me stronger and wiser. I realized then that true strength isn't revenge or anger, it's rising above, reclaiming your worth, and building a life so extraordinary those who wronged you can only watch. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's the ultimate victory.